Authentic humility begins with a sense of enoughness. It's a psychological security that knows you're already loved, you're already worthy, you're already enough.
Humility is a really interesting one because when people first hear it, they think you're talking about low self-esteem or a sort of low level of assertiveness or something like that. And it's not that. That isn't what it is.
I'm really passionate about humility. I've been studying it since graduate school, so more than 10 years of research on humility. And the culmination of that was in the summer of 2022, I published a book on humility called Humble that kind of tried to summarize the state of research in a very accessible way. But the reason why I'm really passionate about humility is I think it is probably the chief, if not the chief, the second chief virtue in Christian life, right next to love. So I think of love and humility as being right there. And so I see it as so core to what Christians do. And sadly, I think it's one of the least cultivated virtues among Christians and in Christian life. And in fact, I think that currently our culture and our Christian church is oriented more around certainty. It's oriented more around having the right answers. It's oriented more around being able to defend your beliefs from this imaginary other who is coming to take everything precious away from you. And to me, that's not a mark of humility. The reason why I think humility is so important is I think it has existential import. I think if we're not humble, two things are going to happen. First of all, I think that people who aren't humble probably are going to experience a pretty radical crisis of faith at some point because they're not going to be able to make sense of the suffering that they experience in the world. And the second thing is, I think one of the surest ways that people can convey to others that their religion or their ideology is not worth following is by demonstrating flagrant arrogance. To me, humility, it seems critical and it seems so necessary to develop. But sadly, it's one of the things that people want in others. So when I mention to people I study humility, they're like, oh, that's great, I'll give your book to my father-in-law. But no one really says, oh, that's the thing I want to develop, because in part, we think we're great at it. And in the other part, it's really hard to cultivate.
So one of the character strengths I've done quite a lot of work on is humility, so particularly pragmatically. And humility is a really, really good example of a character strength that goes down really well in churches, kind of, and terribly with like CEOs and international banks and things like that. So I actually had a program called The Humble Leader, which was about how you could develop humility as a leader. And I found churches loved it, it really helped them, all that kind of thing. And then I take it to international bankers, and they'd be like, we're not sure we want it. So I actually changed the title of the program and called it The Effective Leader. It's still about humility, it's all the same stuff. But the change in title means that they bought it. And humility is a really interesting one, because when people first hear it, they think you're talking about low self-esteem or a sort of low level of assertiveness or something like that. And it's not that. That isn't what it is. So when I talk to executive leaders, I will be saying, okay, you all know you need courage. You need to go into a room, make bold decisions, have assertive conversations. But if that's all you do, you don't have a lot of sustainability as a leader. And humility isn't so much thinking less of yourself, it's more thinking about yourself less, which means you're being open to learning, you're hearing from other people, you're building more positive connections, you feel more grounded and present because you're not constantly trying to bat off all the demands of your ego. And so humility is a really, really good example of something that I find for the first 5 minutes people don't think they need it. And once you've started talking about the science of it, people really take to it and really see the point of it.
Humility has been wildly misunderstood. And so there are a lot of myths surrounding humility. So I like to think about humility as being the right size in a situation. Not too big, but also not too small. Right? So if you're being too big, that ditch is arrogance. And most people are aware that we shouldn't be arrogant. But the ditch on the other side is being too small. And that's something like servility or cowardice, right? That's not humility. And I think because of that, humility has been used in some degrees by some people as a tool of oppression, particularly against minoritized groups or groups that have not had historically access to power or privilege. So women, people of color have often been told, just be humble, as a way of being told, well, just stay in line. And that's not authentic humility. In my view, authentic humility begins with a sense of enoughness. It's a psychological security that knows you're already loved, you're already worthy, you're already enough. And if you can start with that, you don't have to respond defensively when people disagree with you. You can consider the needs of other people as equal to your own, and so you don't have to be egotistically consumed with making sure that your needs are getting met. And you don't need to put yourself above others and over-perceive your superiority as a way of making yourself feel better. So can you check your selfish motivations, and can you reel in your natural impulses to only take care of your own needs? And then finally, can you go beyond yourself? Can you consider the needs of other people? Can you respond to them with empathy and respect?